Hi everybody, welcome to Module 7.2. In this module, we're going to talk about data validation, and let's look at a few different examples of that right now. So here, I want to make a drop-down like you see over here. It says Toronto, Montreal, or Sudbury, and I do this because I want to avoid people accidentally typing in the wrong thing, and that would make it confusing and difficult to evaluate the data. So what I do is I made a separate sheet called variables, which I'm going to hide later so nobody can see. And I typed in city at the top, and then Toronto, Montreal, and Sudbury. I grabbed these like this, and I called the variable in the name box city. Then I go into the first cell, and I click on the data validation button under data and data tools, and I pick the option that says list. I press my source equals city, so I go to that city on the second page on the variable page and bring it back, and I uncheck where it says ignore blank. I did that because I always want, when you turn on the sheet, all of them are going to be blank unless they're selected. And now I have a drop-down box that I could pick exactly that entry, making it a lot easier if I'm using COUNTIF or um, other methods to evaluate what's in these boxes, so I won't get thrown off by a typo. For phone, let's grab the list of phone numbers, and I'm going to go to where it says Data Tools. I'm going to press text length. Although we could also use whole number, I could also use stuff like that. And I'm going to say between 7 and 11 is a valid phone number. I'll press OK. And then if I try typing in a number that's not long enough, it will say the value doesn't match the data validation restrictions as defined by this cell. So that means that if I put in a full phone number, 555-5555, then it's going to work. Otherwise, I'll get an error message. So that's a good way to make sure that the number typed in is actually complete. For name, we could do the same kind of thing. We could go in here, we could say we want to have text length of a certain size. So maybe it has to be at least 2 characters for the name. So if I only type in 1 character, I'll get an error. Right? So this is a good way, once we validate all those cells, to make sure that whatever is being entered in the boxes is the appropriate text, and we're not going to have gaps in our data. You can see from the list 715 on page 408 a whole bunch of different types of data validation, and you can see an example of the data validation box on page 409. Okay, so let's run through an example of this from Module 7. We're going to do the box on page 410, and we made a new field called height, right? We're going to put the person's height in inches, and we're going to go to validate settings, and we want to have a whole number, and it has to be greater than, let's say, 70. Okay, so basically whatever number is entered in here, if we write 50, it's going to come up with an error, but if we write 80, it's going to work fine. Okay, so how are we going to customize the error message that comes with this? So right now, if I type in 50, it says the value doesn't match the data validation restrictions as defined by this cell. So let's try something else. We click here, and then we're going to go to where it says error alert and warning. We're going to type in height. And press OK. So now when we type in, it will say, you're not tall enough to ride the ship. Continue. And we can press yes or no. We can also add information in there which would allow us to provide more information. We could say, contact a supervisor. We could say restrictions on height limit for riding the ship require you to be at least 80 centimeters, or sorry, 80 inches, etc. Okay, so that is customizing the warning message to be whatever we want that will come back. And that way also gives the user, when they're using the sheet, a lot more information on explaining what the problem is. Okay, and one of the ways that we can make sure that people know what they're supposed to enter in the box, we could see from the example on page 411. You'll note that when I click on the first box of height, it pops up a tooltip that says you need to be at least 80 inches to board the ship. Meaning that if I type 81, I'm probably okay, but if I type 70, it's going to come up with our error. Okay, so the way I set that up is I went into data validation and I clicked input message with that cell selected. And I said, show input message when the cell is selected. So normally if I'm here, I won't see anything, but if I go here, it pops up. Okay, and then I could copy that down to the rest of our cells. So if I click on any of them, it will show the height message. And I could go into here and customize what that says. So I have my custom error message and I have my custom input message that will pop up on the sheet when there is an issue. Okay, so now just zipping ahead to the blue box on page 417, you'll note that if we have data which is incorrect, so let's say we put this here, it says you're not tall enough to ride the ship, continue, I press yes, it's still going to save it as 70 even though that's invalid. Okay, same thing if we put it as 60 and so on. Now, when we then turn on the sheet, we're not going to see right away what the problems are. We have another function under data tools where we can go into here and click where it says circle invalid data. And you can do this even when there's already data in the sheet and you've applied new data validation. So if you click this, you'll notice that it circles everywhere where there is invalid data based on whatever criteria you have. So these ones are circled because they're blanks. Okay, and we could go where it says clear circles, reapply circles, and then it's not going to show us those. We could change these, let's say, to 80, and it will take away the circle. This is a good way to go in and identify what data is problematic, even though it hasn't shown up because you applied the filters second. Okay, so let's go to page 418 and look at another way to protect data on the sheet. So here's the costs for admission or whatever to our amusement park ride. Okay, so we've put in all our other data. We have our phone numbers, we have our random names, we have the heights, and here is the cost for each person. Now, we don't want anybody to change the height or the cost because those are fields that are not supposed to change, right? So I'm going to go here, right click, and go to Format Cells, and under Protection, I'm going to check where it says Locked. Now, when I do that, it means that it's going to be locked, and without a password, you're not going to be able to open it. But right now, I could still change it. I need to do one more thing. Go up to where it says Review, and click on where it says Protect Sheet, or I could go to Protect Workbook. So I'm going to go to where it says Protect Sheet, and it's going to say, what do you want to protect? And right now I have Select Lock Cells, Select Unlock Cells. Okay, but I could protect all these things as well. I'm going to put in a password, 123, press OK. It's going to say, what is your password? 123, and it says, don't lose your password, because if you lose your password, and it's case sensitive, you are unable to edit the sheet. So now it's locked, and I can't change anything. It says the cell you're trying to change is a protected sheet. To make a change, unprotect the sheet. Okay, now I could still change other things. Actually, I can't. I locked the entire sheet. That's because I had everything selected. So I'll put in 123, the password, and let's do phone numbers. Okay, so I'll right click, I'll go to Format Cells, uncheck Locked, and press OK. Now I'll protect the sheet again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm able to change these numbers, but I can't. Oh, it's still asking me for data validation. 666, 6666. There we go. So it lets me change the phone numbers, but it won't let me change anything else on the sheet because they're all protected. Okay, and that just usually puts in the lock by default. So as soon as you protect it, it locks the entire sheet. So this way, you could choose which fields you want to be locked, and then when you hand it off to a client, they won't be able to screw, or an employee or so on, they won't be able to screw up the formulas behind the sheet because those fields are locked and you're only able to edit the ones that you give them permission to. Okay, so we also have comments. You can also protect the workbook, which is basically the same way. And we'll move on to comments, which is on page 422. So to do that, you can right click on the cell and click on where it says Insert Comment. Okay, so you can right click and go to where it says Insert Comment, and this little box comes up and it says, hi, enter, whoops, enter height. Okay, so you'll notice that when you have a comment, there's that little red dot at the corner, and you know that if you put the tooltip over it, it will show you that comment. Okay, I could also go back to the cell, right click, and delete or edit comment, or show hide edit comments. Okay, I could also go into review and just press new comment, and that will pop up here. So let's say I have instruction number 1, And then down here, I can go in and add instruction number 2. And then I'm able to go back and forth between comments. There we go. Okay, so, and I could also go in and then edit or delete the comment using these tools over here. Okay, and this works very similar to the way Microsoft Word works under Review. Okay, so in this module, we covered how to protect a sheet using a validated field entry and how to put in comments. And in the next one, we'll go into macros.